Josh Strife Hayes. I'm very interested to hear what he has to say.
Casual MMO player or a hardcore MMO player? What even makes someone casual or hardcore? And what are the advantages or disadvantages to either? Let's find out. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Josh Strife Hayes. Video games are now the most popular form of entertainment globally, and the MMORPG genre is a genre that demands hundreds of hours of your time and attention and focus. Because of this, players that do give hundreds of hours are often called hardcore players, and this is worn as a badge of honour within the MMORPG landscape. Players that maybe can't dedicate quite as much time are sometimes referred to as casuals in a somewhat derogatory way. But these terms are a little bit vague, so let's discuss what casual and hardcore really mean and which, if either, is better. Before we begin, consider dropping a like on the video or subscribing to the channel for more MMO stuff. Ring the bell for all the future notifications. As usual, a big thank you to all the supporters on Patreon and Twitch who keep the channel going. More on this at the end. For now, let's begin. There are 4 major areas of hardcore versus casual I want to look at in reference to the actions of the players within the MMO genre. Number 1. Time spent playing the game. Number 2. Depth of understanding of the mechanical aspects of the game. Number 3, time spent involved with the subculture of the game. And the 4th and final area, which I believe is more important than the other 3, your attitude toward other fans of the game. So let's begin with number 1, time spent playing. How long do you think the average MMO gamer spends playing their chosen MMO on a typical week or a typical day? Well, several studies have been done into this, and we've got the following data. The Daedalus project studied 1,996 MMO gamers and discovered the average gaming time of 21 hours per week, so roughly 3 hours a day. Limelight Networks found a general study of gamers and concluded around 7 hours per week. This was across all genres, not just MMOs, so an average of 1 hour a day for a normal gamer. A study from Gamasutra found an average playtime of 22 hours per week for MMO players specifically, back to that 3 hour a day number. And IGN studied MMO players and found an average weekly gaming time of 25 hours per week, although this study is biased as they only interviewed self-proclaimed hardcore MMO players, giving an average of just over 3 hours a day. So several studies have corroborated that 3 hour a day time limit. If you play an MMO for under 3 hours a day, you may rightly call yourself casual. If you play it for over 3 hours a day, you may call yourself hardcore, and you've got studies to back this up. Remember though, people will look at these hours and go, ooh, 3 hours a day, that's a long time. You're addicted, that's a problem. However, studies have shown the average American watches between 4 and 6 hours of television a day. So the average MMO enjoyer is actually enjoying less screen time than the average TV watcher. Next up, depth of understanding of the mechanical aspects. And we don't have studies for this one because it's more of a personal knowledge thing and differs from game to game. How much do you know about the way your game works under the surface? How much do you know about the engine running it, the timings of the combat animation versus the actual impacts received, or how movement could be affected by non-movement related items? Here's an example. A casual player will know that the RuneScape combat system is click and wait. You attack the enemy, they attack you. You trade blows back and forth. If you want to protect yourself from incoming enemy damage, you can turn on a protection prayer, which absorbs all the damage of a certain style and slowly drains your prayer points. A more advanced player will know the combat system actually works on a tick timing delay, with each tick being 0.6 seconds and each weapon attacking every few ticks. And they'll also know that your prayer points drain after being activated for longer than a tick. So if you keep your prayer off and then flick it on during a damaged tick, but you don't leave the prayer on for longer than a full tick, you'll block all of the incoming damage because the game...
Just looking at this guide suggests that you are a hardcore player. That's the difference. People who care to research and optimize.
The game sees your prayer as being on, but you won't use up any prayer points because it's off before the drain happens. This is known as prayer flicking. A video game is just a visual interface for computer code, and the casual players are happy enough to look at the visual interface that's given to them and say, this is all the information I need. Everything I need to complete the game is shown to me through the graphics. A hardcore player will say, there are things the graphics can't show me. The exact split-second perfect timings of
Right.
attacks, the way code interacts with other bits of code, the exact way the mechanics of this game work. A casual player is content to look at the game and say this is enough. A hardcore player will say, I need more than the visuals can give me. I need to know how the code underneath works. And then they need to know how they can use that to their advantage. And to answer your question about whether this is tea or coffee in my mug, neither. It's boiling hot in England today. My mug is full of ice. In certain older MMOs like Meridian 59, you have stat points that you can
I have ice. And London gin.
allocate normally at the start of creating your character, such as strength or intelligence, but those stats only actually provide in-game bonuses at certain thresholds. For example, you may gain additional melee damage every 5 strength points, or more spell points every 10 intelligence points.
What is
now,
this?
casual players won't know what these thresholds are, and will happily put 4 points into strength and 6 points into intelligence, increasing the values visually, but not actually getting any mechanical bonuses. A more hardcore player would know the coding of the game requires these values to hit the minimum threshold increases to actually affect anything, and would put all of their points into one thing.
Right.
A casual player is more than happy to take what the game gives them in terms of visual and audio stimuli and say that's all I need to know.
That reminds me a bit of KOTOR, for example. You can increase an attribute by 1, but the modifier does not increase until you've spent at least 2 attribute points, for example, going from +1 to +2, etc.
Hardcore player needs to know
Some people will be like, oh, well, I want to evenly distribute everything, and they kind of evenly throw stuff around, but they don't fully understand how many points are, within the scope of the game that they'll be able to optimally place within the given attributes of that game. Let's just use D&D as an example. So, I mean, if you want to play a character that's mostly going to do like melee weapons and stuff like that, do you really need the dexterity? Unless you're going to be like some kind of a tank that needs to like really endure. Maybe you want to go way more into strength so that you can just like beast through damage and also deal out loads of damage. Anyway.
The exact specifications of everything that happens in the game, and because of this, they will often spend a long time outside of playing the game researching the mechanics of the game. And this leads us nicely into number 3, the amount of time you spend in the subculture around the game itself. For casual players, logging in, playing the game, and logging out is enough. The game exists separately to the rest of their life, and that's fine. To them, it's just a game. To a more hardcore player, the game itself is simply one aspect of a subculture focused around the franchise. You may play World of Warcraft for 5 hours a day, but when you're done playing, you have forums to browse, conventions to attend, cosplay to make, Twitter threads to respond to, and soundtracks to listen to. The average RuneScape player will enjoy the game, and that's enough for them. Hardcore players often forget that the references and in-game celebrities they know aren't common knowledge outside of the hardcore circle. While the average RuneScape player may know who Zazima is, only the hardcore are buying 3D prints of boss monsters, attending RuneFest, or endlessly annoying Mod Ash on Twitter. All major MMORPGs have spawned franchises. Final Fantasy, Elder Scrolls, World of Warcraft, Guild Wars 2, and RuneScape. People like to spend time reading the books, going to the conventions, dressing up in the cosplay. People like to tweet at the directors, and the developers of these games are basically minor celebrities. In an interesting twist, if you are watching this video at all, you are probably more toward the hardcore side of the MMORPG player spectrum. Because not many players actually consume YouTube media based around the MMORPG landscape.
Right.
Creators...
Which is, needless to say, why I chose such a genre to dip my feet into YouTubing, is because there's not a lot of people there. So, I can't be disliked into oblivion for not being able to speak as eloquently as Josh, perhaps.
Such as myself, Asmongold, Bellular, Kira TV, The Lazy Peon, MMO Byte, people that make MMORPG content are doing it to cater to the more hardcore fanbase.
Yeah.
So with time spent playing the game,
Not always necessarily to inform, sometimes to try and entertain, try.
Game, your level of understanding of the mechanical aspects of the game, and your
In this case, this is more just like a borderline reaction, which is not it's not like I'm reacting to anything particularly exciting, but just information that I relate to a lot
dedication to the
as a hardcore player.
subculture around the game all being barometers to measure your place on the casual versus hardcore spectrum, let's discuss the fourth aspect, the one which I believe to be the most important: attitude toward other people. Being a casual player does not mean you are a bad player, and being a hardcore player does not mean you must be an elitist player. Casual players enjoy the game for what it presents itself as and no more, and that's absolutely fine. They may not completely understand the intricacies of the armor system, but most people will know a higher armor value is better. A casual player may not know the exact second perfect timing of a boss rotation, but they'll understand not to stand in the red and they will follow basic tactics. A casual player isn't an idiot. They are a person enjoying the experience the game gives them, and that is fine. There is nothing wrong with playing a game to a more casual
Thanks,
level.
Josh.
If you can only play an hour or two a week, your gaming time is still valuable and relevant, and your adventure and enjoyment still matter. If you play a class because you enjoy the playstyle and the feel of that class despite it not being optimal or meta, that's fine. Your
Shout out Holy Priests.
class choice is still valid. And if you switch the game off and don't think about it, or talk about it, or write about it, or read about it until you're next online, you are no less of a true fan of the game. Playing a game casually is 100% fine. As for the hardcore player,
This feels like such a positive vibes PSA, but at the same time, I feel it's something that needs to be said because there are people with horrible attitudes towards other players as a result of their commitment or not commitment to the game.
players, your extra time on the game, understanding of the mechanics, and involvement in the community at large will give you a superior level of skill, advanced knowledge of what's coming out soon, and plenty of in-jokes. But this does not mean you have the right to be a dick about it.
Yeah.
Spending more time playing an
Seriously.
MMO will make you a higher level, and with that advantage you get to choose what kind of higher level you want to be. A supportive, encouraging mentor-style player, or an arrogant elitist. Understanding the mechanics of a boss fight or a skilling system to minute detail again puts you in a position of power and authority, and you get to choose what to do with that. Educate and share and support, or brag and gatekeep. You can actively choose to lift people up and help with your knowledge, or to belittle them and put them down. Maybe for not knowing a specific combination of items or weapons causes an unwritten bug and increases your damage by 1%. As for the involvement outside of the game itself, the conventions and cosplays, this is the breeding ground for gatekeeping. The worst type of hardcore players will claim you're not a real fan until you've been to all the meetups, own all the merchandise, and have had your face personally licked by every member of the development team. And this is just not true at all. If you're a casual fan, that's great. When it comes to group content, just make sure you understand enough of the game to be a valued team member. You don't need super detailed knowledge of everything, just a basic level of understanding is fine. And if you're a hardcore player, that's great, but don't hold your hardcore status over a casual player as if it's some sort of trophy. Use your skill and knowledge to raise people up, not put them down. How you treat other people, especially people who can do nothing for you, is the biggest indicator of who you truly are as a person. If you're a casual player, that's absolutely fine. You don't need to mock the hardcore for being no-life tryhards. If you're a hardcore player, that's fine. You don't need to belittle the casual players for not dedicating as much time to the game. Find people in your favourite MMO that play the game the way you want to play it, and then enjoy playing with them. We are all part of the MMO community at large. You, me, other players, other content creators.
Sure.
Let's make it a community worth being in. Thank you for watching. Do you consider yourself more casual or more hardcore? Let me know in the comments below. As usual, another big thanks to the supporters on Patreon and Twitch. You can support the channel from only £1 a month.
What's so interesting to me is that I consider myself a hardcore player from the perspective of taking time to research how to play the game better, be a better player, potentially offer more assistance to my party in the context of an MMO, or learn certain routes in like a shooter game or something like that, or the meta pick against certain heroes or champions, what have you. Like, I'm so interested in learning all those things to be good at the game, or else in my mind it's like, what's the point? Why? Like, if you're not gonna try, why are you even playing it? But I can't, I have to realize that it's not everyone's mentality, and I've really come to terms with that. But I find that even sometimes, with my coming to terms with that and in trying to enjoy games with people who lower their expectations, I can't help but find myself sometimes roped in with the hardcore crowd being like, yo, like, they need to be doing this, they need to be doing that. Like, why are you playing it this way? And it's like, yeah, I know, but like, let's have some fun. What's the big deal?